Now the Soma section is in a way the core of Rig Veda, with implications which echo right down through history. We're on page 132, the Ecstasy of Soma. Well, you see, what is very interesting is if we keep in mind how the Vedic philosophy evolved, you first of all had these early hymns, which are the core of the thing. And they were presented by generations of scholars in company with commentaries called Brahmanas, which evolved into commentaries on commentaries and endless expositions, becoming more and more systematic until you had the supreme heights of rational refinement developing in Indian thought as Upanishadic philosophy, as the deepest aspects of Buddhist theology, as the Viveka Chudamani during our medieval period, and this possibly highest philosophic flight that human consciousness has ever attained evolved from these powerful, berserk-sounding succession of passionate affirmations, ecstatic, passionate affirmations, with no pretense at philosophy. One of the very interesting things which, with all the respected Hindu friends I've listened to over the years, doesn't really come out, is that rational Vedic philosophy, the great Vedanta philosophy, and Buddhism are essentially monistic and cyclic. The universe moves in cycles, round and round, and all is one. Life is one, all is one. Ultimately, there's no such thing as evil, because all is one. But while there is the monistic impulse discernible in the Rig Veda, as with Zoroastrianism, there is this strong presentation of the interaction of light and darkness, the interaction of the commanding spirit powers and the resistance of the inertia of nature, sometimes recalcitrant nature, sometimes antagonistic nature, forces, personalities within nature opposing the evolutionary intentions of what's symbolized as the gods. This dualism, this conflict of light and darkness, is a thread right through the Rig Veda. It's a thread right through the other great Aryan Vedic tradition, which emerged as Zoroastrianism, which again subsequently manifested as Christianity. The power of light overcoming limitation, overcoming darkness, overcoming antagonistic forces in nature. And I think we would need to discuss somewhere along the line, where does the monism come in? Because all the stress is on dualism. Why is all the stress on dualism? This is Tantra. As Tantra, it is also alchemy. It's possibly the beginnings of liturgy. It's possibly the beginnings of drama with these several speaking characters. It's possibly the beginnings of alchemy. Or maybe it's a poetic statement of an alchemical teaching much, much older than when the Aryan invaders were on the move into India around about 2000 BC. If we look at the scene, it is a ritual taking place in the mountains. Soma is born and sacrificed in the mountains, as is Agni, spiritual fire, as is Purush. The ceremonies that took place in the high places had a definite dramatic venue to them. And if we read through this, we even find, by implication, a sort of dramatis personae. There is the priest who represents Indra, who speaks as Indra, who becomes Indra, who is overshadowed by Indra, overshadowed by the great Deva, the great sky spirit. There is the priest who represents Soma. Indra is a solar being. Soma is a lunar being. So you have the solar and the lunar priests. There is a priest who sacrifices the plant, who performs the act of sacrifice. There is another who presents the chalice. There are 7 priests. There's a reference to a high priest, who would be the one who sacrifices the plant. If we let it sink in, the images are very powerful. And we need to keep in mind, I think, that the Vedic language, which later became formalized as Sanskrit, that the Vedic language was a mantra language, and they attributed extraordinary importance to the power of sound, and also to the creative effect of the words that were formed through the sound. And one wonders, might they have had, in their relative simplicity, living at a period when the human psyche was a lot less complex than it is now, might they have had a comprehension of the creative power of the word, the transforming effect of rhythmic sound of a certain kind, and the real meaning, the real inner meaning of mantra, the real inner meaning of prayer. The implication is that there is a sort of liturgy, and this is made somewhat emphasized by the recurring mantra that follows each verse. And if we ask ourselves, how does it proceed? Then it would proceed with a certain action, a certain probably a careful positioning of the dramatis personae. There would be rhythm in the chant. There might or might not be an emphasizing of the rhythm by drums and maybe other instruments, but certainly there would be rhythm. We're on page 132, the Ecstasy of Soma. The poet begins by inviting Indra to drink Soma with him, and then invokes Soma for himself, praising him. He then asks Soma to make him immortal as he becomes inspired under the hallucinogenic influence of the drug. So let's have a look at verse 1. Let Indra, the killer of Vritra, drink Soma in Saryanavat, gathering his strength within himself to do a great heroic deed. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. Let Indra, who is king of the gods, lord of the wind, expressing the spiritual life impulse, the Shakti, the prana, as it manifests allegedly in refined form in the ether and later through the energies of the atmosphere becoming the air. Let Indra, the king of the gods, the life impulse, the killer, in the same way as Shiva, the lord of yogis, is the destroyer of darkness, the killer of Vritra, who is the demon of drought, who is the one who prevents abundance, who causes physical and spiritual thirst. Let Indra, the killer of Vritra, drink Soma. To drink in this context is to imbibe Shakti, power. Soma is the life and regeneration impulse manifest in nature. Drink Soma in Saryanavat, which is the mountains where Soma grows and is presumably the scene of the ritual. Soma in Saryanavat, gathering his strength within himself. This is a very yang scenario, very positive, male-orientated. Indra, the archetypal spiritual warrior, is gathering his male vitality, his strength within himself, his life potential, to do a great heroic deed. Gathering the strength within himself is assimilating the life potential within himself, building up the life potential within himself. And this life potential would be what Tantra calls the Kundalini, the transforming dormant power, what Taoism calls the Chi power. To do a great heroic deed, and whatever the forms it takes, this great heroic deed is the victory of life over inertia, the victory of transforming spiritual power over earth forces which are unyielding, unevolving, unfolding, not unfolding, unfulfilling, which may merely be inertia or may manifest as intelligences in nature which seek to retain their existing form, their existing limitation, and are represented as positively opposing and attempting to thwart the will of the gods, especially Indra and especially Soma. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. O drop that is seed of the Soma power, Soma being the life impulse. Flow that is fruitfully expand for Indra, the archetypal spiritual warrior. One of the things I need to put to Sri Parik when he can come is this word Soma itself, because in other contexts, so means he, the Lord. Ma means she, the Earth Mother. And it would completely fit the tantric and alchemical implications of these documents if Soma was seen as the fusion of heaven and earth, Soma, the earthly mother and the heavenly father. Purify yourself, generous Soma, from Ajika, master of the quarters of the sky, pressed with sacred words, with truth and faith and ardour. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. In this context, Soma is the earth, or the fruit of the earth, the plant level of Soma. Soma is, of course, a complex being. And we can reflect this way, that Soma is the moon, the god of the moon, the lunar god, associated with wisdom, mysticism, inspiration, the sowing of subtle seeds, physical and spiritual. There is an ancient teaching about sowing plants during the full moon. and about the importance of meditation at the time of the full moon. But Soma as the crescent moon is seen as the holder of the elixir of the gods, the cosmic Holy Grail. This is a very ancient concept. And the moon is a child of the earth. So that the moon, which is an aspect of the earth that receives the light of the sun and gently reflects the sun's radiance. The moon is seen as a holder, a sustainer, and an imparter of the subtle energy of the heavenly sun, an imparter to earth. Purify yourself, Soma. Soma is the doer. In this context, the priest becomes Soma. Generous Soma from Ajika, master of the quarters of the sky. Generous Soma expresses that Soma is concerned with abundance. Ye shall have life and have it abundantly. Soma is then both a celestial and a terrestrial spirit. Soma as the celestial spirit is the power of the moon, influencing earth. Soma is also the seed which is sown in the earth through the agency of Agni or fire, which is linked with the sun. Soma is the plant, the fruit of the earth, which is sacrificed, and whose juice is consumed in certain rather strange circumstances. So the terrestrial and celestial aspects of Soma are all combined within one being. Soma is the god who presides over the sacrifice. Soma is the plant which is the fruit of the earth, whose body is broken in the sacrifice. Soma is also the blood of the plant, which is consumed through the sacrifice, and by so doing brings regeneration, awakens the earth to new life. Ajika is the same as Saryanavat. And Soma is master of the quarters of the sky, the source of seed, the source of inspiration. Pressed with sacred words, with truth and faith and ardour, O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. Pressed, that is, macrocosmically, the compression of the human organism and the plant between earth and sky macrocosmically, it is the sacrifice of the Purush. With sacred words, with truth, faith, and ardour. This compression that causes the blood of the plant to flow. This compression that releases the power, releases the kundalini. We can think in terms perhaps of the pressing stones as representing that interaction of pelvis and torso that we use in pranayama. With sacred words, that is mantra. Mantra being, in this context, regarded as incarnate mind. With truth. Truth is the silence between sounds. Truth is the inexpressible. With faith. Faith, in the real sense, is an energy. It's an energy in consciousness that yields an insight that has its own motivation. And that motivation is one of trust in the unfolding of the life process. Pressed with sacred words, with truth, faith, and ardour. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. The sacred words, mantra, are invocation and affirmation to greater life. Invocation to and affirmation of greater life. Truth is receptivity. Faith is equilibrium. And ardor, that is tapas and heat, that is energy. Now let's look at that, if you like, in the light of a symbol of the interlocking triangles that we use as the AYM symbol. The mantra is invocation, affirmation. Truth is receptivity. Faith is equilibrium. Ardour is energy. Now if we look at the lower triangle, the upward pointing triangle, the aspiring life force, this expresses mantra. The right side is affirmation, the left side is invocation. So the power of the mantra, the power of the ritual, is invocatory and affirmatory in the cause of aspiration. The downward pointing triangle is truth, the fire of truth. And one side of the triangle is fire, Agni, spiritual fire. The other side is air. Now in our symbol, we also incorporate the ancient sign of the cross. Equilibrium is the balance point at the centre. That is faith. And the upright pole is Ada, energy passing from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven. So we can say incarnating truth, fire, ether, mantra. Mantra being incarnate thought, is invocation and affirmation. This is Ada, and this is the stabilizing faith. Ada is tapas. Tapas, the generation of spiritual fervour, which the ancient mystics regarded as essential to enlightenment. The tip of the incarnating triangle, combining fire and air or fire and ether, plants the seed, which is the seed of the living water, the drop of the Soma. The overall outline in straight lines of the interlocking triangle is the chalice of the cup of the Soma. The daughter of the sun has brought the buffalo raised by Paranja. The divine youths have received him and placed the juice in Soma. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. So there seems to be a place in the ritual for the daughter of the sun, a priestess. She has brought the buffalo. The buffalo is the bull. The buffalo is the Soma plant, potent with juice, potent with the seed of new life. The daughter of the sun, a priestess, carries the fructifying plant to the sacrifice. The plant which has been raised by Paranya, the god of fructifying rain, who causes the Soma plant to grow. The divine youths have received him and placed the juice in Soma. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. The divine youths. So there's more than one young man represented in this ceremony. the divine youths have received him. They take the Soma from the priestess, have received the Soma plant and place the juice of the Soma plant in Soma, which I think we must assume is also the name of the vessel, the cup, the chalice, used in the ritual. So we see a presumably young female, probably nubile, young priestess, who carries the juice of the plant. Who hands it to the divine youths. We have a definite picture of some action. This is a Vedic ritual whose antiquity is unknown, whose origin is unknown, but which reappeared throughout history in a number of forms. It predated the Christian Eucharist quite considerably, as Mithraism. Mitra, the sun god, had evolved around him a Eucharistic ritual in which the juice of the wine was Eucharistically consumed, and also bread was taken, and on the little loaves of bread, the ancient shrines show, was imprinted a cross. Involved in the ceremony, which was essentially a ceremony in which the devas, or the gods, or the angels, assembled together to share an experience of the release of life at a subtle level, the release of new life, transforming life at a subtle level. Involved in that, the old shrines illustrate, were two youths. As you know, Mithraism was taken over by the Romans, by the Roman military, and therefore the Eucharistic ritual was expressed in Latin. But it predated Christianity considerably. It involved the Iranian sun god Mitra as the central figure, who was also the Indian sun god Mitra, and it goes back in its origins, no doubt through a number of stages of adjustments and evolution, to the Rig Veda. The two youths are shown as one on either side, standing one on either side of Mithras, the sun god, who enacts the ceremony of the sacrifice of the bull. And as you know, Soma is frequently referred to as the bull. And these youths are called Dadaphori, and one is holding a flaming torch pointing upwards, the other is holding the same flaming torch pointing downwards. This obviously expresses the path of the sun through the heavens. Mithras in the centre is its zenith. The boy on the right is the dawn, the aspiring light. The boy on the left with the downward pointing fire is the descending light. So it may be that the divine youths, the companions of the god, were two in number, were servers, assisters, and stood at some point one each side of the high priest who represented Soma, who enacted the sacrifice. You speak of the sacred as your brightness is sacred. You speak of the truth as your deeds are true. You speak of faith, King Soma, as you are carefully prepared by the sacrificial priest. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. At which point, friends, I've just looked at my watch. It seems it's time to break for Soma, if we're going to break at all. The real truth is on an inner level. It's on a higher level. It's not talking about a physical truth. It's talking about an inner symbolic truth. I'd be strongly persuaded to say I wouldn't deny that for a moment. But much more important is it's true on every level. On every level. And if it's true inwardly, mystically, symbolically, somewhere along the line it becomes true physically. Because the inner will incarnate and change the physical. So that whatever peril awaits the world, I'm rather persuaded, for good or ill, that the human race is going to be in the most dire state of catastrophe. And existing knowledge, scientific knowledge, will be inadequate for saving the race, saving the planet. It will only come about by a rebirth of spiritual science, essentially alchemical in the deeper sense, which will unite with practical science, and the two together will release whatever energy will regenerate the stricken earth. And this is what, essentially, the Holy Grail mythos is all about. The wasteland becoming fruitful again. Also, I would think that interpreting an ancient thing like the Rig Veda is not, it is only a philosophic exercise in a secondary sense. It's more like interpreting a dream or a vision, because it's a vision that arises at the prompt of the sequence of symbols that constitutes the hymn. Anyway, friends, the next one is verse 4, is it? Yes. I'll just read it through once more. You speak of the sacred as your brightness is sacred. You speak of the truth as your deeds are true. You speak of faith, King Soma, as you are carefully prepared by the sacrificial priest. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. You, that is the celestial Soma, who overshadows the high priest. You speak of the sacred mystery of the sacrifice, which is a ritual. As your brightness, Soma is the moon, as your brightness, your moon glow, and also the inner energy radiant within the high priest, the aura, as your brightness, your moon glow, your aura is sacred. You, Soma priests, speak the truth. That is, you speak inspired words. As your deeds, that is, inspired action, are true. You, the Soma priests, through your mantra, are uttering truth, inspired words. That truth is uttered in the air, on the breath. As your deeds, your inspired action, which is fire, are true. And truth is action. In this context, truth is action in right balance of body, mind, and spirit. So this right balance of body, mind, and spirit is the union within the human entity, the union of heaven and earth. You speak of faith, King Soma, as you are carefully prepared by the sacrificial priest. You, Soma, speak, overshadowing the priest, of faith, which is the true balance of being, the right balance of body, mind, and spirit. King Soma. Soma is a great monarch. As you are carefully prepared, so a preparation goes on. Carefully prepared implies a form of action which is attuned to the higher planes, is attuned to the Buddhic level. As you are carefully prepared by the sacrificial priest. this right action is Zen action. Action not born of thought, but controlled by an energy, a power, which is beyond the thought level. What does a preparation contain? There are frequent references throughout the Rig Veda of Soma as milk, of Soma as honey. I'd be inclined to suspect that one ingredient of the mixture would be mead. One school of thought thinks that the Medes and the Persians, the Medes, the great Iranian people, took their name from the Indo-Aryan drink of mead. The milk, I would suspect it contains milk. In all probability, cow's milk, since the image of the cow, the mother principle of the universe, is so employed. I would suspect it would be matured milk, containing an active germ, as the drink mead contains an active germ. So, at a minimum, the contents of the cup consumed by the initiates would be the juice of the plant, mead, which is a living thing, and milk. The floods of the High One, the truly awesome One, flow together. The juices of him, so full of juice, mingle together as you, the tawny one, purify yourself with prayer. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. The floods of the High One, the truly awesome One. The floods, then, might well be the commingling of the juice with mead, representing solar energy, and milk, representing earth energy. The floods of the High One, that is the moon Soma, the truly awesome One. What is truly awesome? One wonders what manifested in these gatherings. This is very much concerned with a very ancient theme of the interaction, the companionship of humanity with angelic presences. The truly awesome One is what manifests. And there are those who would not have too much difficulty in thinking that these ancient people, psychologically much less complex and cluttered than we are, much more simple in their psychic structure, could cognize subtle levels more readily than we're able to. The floods of the High One, the truly awesome one, flow together. That is the confluence of solar, lunar, and earth forces. The juices of him, so full of juice, mingle together as you, the tawny one, purify yourself with prayer. The juices of him, that is the plant level of Soma, so full of juice, that is the blood of the plants, the regenerating life force, mingle together. There is a confluence. As these elements are poured into the vessel, as you, Soma, the deva of the Soma plant, overshadowing the high priest, as you, the tawny one, the plant, purify yourself with prayer. So the mantra, the prayer ritual, has this purpose of refining the physical level by tapas, by spiritual heat, which manifests demonstrably as physical heat, which is prana, which is Shakti. So this Shakti, through the mantra vibration and by tapas, is roused and purifies the physical level. Where the high priest speaks rhythmic words, O purifier, holding the pressing stones, becoming great with Soma, giving birth to joy through the Soma, O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. Where the high priest, that is the Rishi, the Zoroaster figure, speaks rhythmic words, that is mantra, the mantra of the liturgy, O purifier, the purification process implies the involvement of Agni, fire. And I would tentatively offer the thought that one of the functions of the Dadophori, the youths carrying the flame, is to apply fire to the mixture that is consumed. O purifier, holding the pressing stones, looked at subjectively. The pressing stones are the interaction of pelvis and torso. The pelvic level being the supporting and aspiring triangle, the earth level, the torso level being the incarnating triangle. The interaction between the two, at the point which is between pelvis and torso, the point of Manipura chakra, which is fire. O purifier holding the pressing stones, become great with Soma, become great. Cosmic consciousness with Soma in this connection, Kundalini. The rousing of the earth forces in spiritual form, transformed and spiritual form, giving birth, that is resurrection, to joy through the Soma, that is the act of the sacrifice. O drop of Soma, flow for Indra. O drop, potent juice containing the seed of regenerating life. O drop of Soma, at this level, Soma is the spark that kindles the Kundalini fire. Flow for Indra, the spiritual warrior. The initiate becomes Indra. Where the inextinguishable light shines, the world where the sun is placed, in that immortal world, O purifier, place me. Where the inextinguishable light of Brahman, the cosmic spirit, shines, the eternal world, where the sun is placed, in that immortal world, O purifier, implying the presence of Agni, place me, the initiate. Where Vivasvan's sun is king, where heaven is enclosed, where those young waters are, there make me immortal. Vivasvan is the Deva, the spirit of the rising sun. Vivasvan, the Lord of the rebirthing light. This Vivasvan in this context is Yama Vivasvata, represented as king of the dead, king of the first human being ever to die. But Yama is not monarch of a place of shadow, the abode of the dead, or perhaps more correctly, the abode of the fulfilled dead, is the realm of light. And Yama, Vivasvata, son of the rising sun, is king of heaven. The image is used of the dome of heaven. That's quite interesting, because Einstein discovered a law which showed that space is curved. The dome of heaven. Where those young waters are, the life-giving rain, the celestial place where the angelic presences nurture the life-giving water that is to fall on the earth. Where those young waters are, the life-giving rain, there make me immortal. Transport the initiate to the Buddhic level. Transport the initiate to the plane of total light. Where they move as they will in the triple dome, in the third heaven, where the worlds are made of light there make me immortal. Where they, the devas, the gods, move as they will, in total liberty, uncontainable, moksha, in the triple dome of the third heaven. There's an ancient teaching that there is a material heaven, a mental heaven, and a spiritual heaven. There make me, the initiate, immortal. It would be interesting to examine at this juncture a lecture given by the 3rd century AD Gnostic Caesar Julian, who was a Mithraic initiate. He's called Julian the Apostate. As a child, he was compelled into Christian baptism. But somewhere along the line, he connected with Mithraism, which revealed to him, so he thought, the true meaning of the sun and the relationship of the earth to the sun. I might bring that next week. Where there are desires and longings at the sun's zenith, where the dead are fed and satisfied, there make me immortal. Where there are desires and longings for liberation, for moksha, at the sun's zenith, that is the peak of the initiate's life, the time when his power is most potent, which Dr. Jung suggests tends to be around 37. Where the dead, that is the discarnate beings who are united with the light, are fed and spiritually satisfied, there at the Buddhic level make me the initiate also immortal, moksha, liberation. It's an interesting thought that the Buddha is supposed to have attained nirvana at the age of 36. Ramakrishna at the age of 35. That period of the mature 30s seems to have particular import. Where there are joys, where the desires of desire are fulfilled, there make me immortal. Where there are celestial joys, where the desires of desire for moksha find their fulfillment, there make the initiate immortal. That is, ascended to the Buddhic plane. Your thoughts, dear friends?
In verse 8, where the sun is king, Is that our Father who art in heaven?
Well, that's very interesting because Vivasvan has an initiatory role both for the individual and for the earth. That aspect of the sun which is the dawning light, the rising light. Is again reproduced in the New Testament, in Luke, when Zacharias says, when he looks at the pregnant Mary, the rising sun has come among us, identifying Christ as Vivasvan, a ray of the rising sun. In one sense, we could say that Yama, the king of the realm of light, the king of heaven, lord of the fulfilled discarnate entities, is the risen Christ. And Manu, the man, who is also son of the rising sun, Manu Vevasvata, is Christ. Manu is the Lord of the living. So it's the Christ in the earthly aspect.
I was also going to say you talked about mead, and I understood mead to be a drink made from honeycomb, not a plant.
Yeah, the point is, Soma is frequently referred to as honey. It's frequently referred to as milk. And Soma is obviously a mixture which flows together from several sources. And I would suspect, I only suspect, that two of the ingredients are live milk and mead. I wouldn't know what it tasted like. They certainly seemed to approve of it, didn't they?
Mead is fermented, isn't it?
Absolutely, well, of course. But the point I'm trying to bring across is that this is not an experience brought about by some drug, per se, is not an experience which is the result of a booze up. But there's something much, much more to it. When the Soma priest is overshadowed by the Deva, this is a power situation. Where there is a circle, I would suspect, of 7 priests and 7 initiates, at least, that what is active in and through the material substance, that is the Soma liquid, is something that is charged by the Kundalini power within the priest, within the high priest. When Melchizedek presented the cup to Abraham, was he just giving him a drink? Or what was it? There is healing and transforming power within the human organism. The human organism is a vessel for receiving and emanating, transmitting cosmic energies, but energies which have become focused, being given a focus within the human entity, the human psychophysical structure, which is, or should be, the temple of the living spirit, a temple of celestial energies, solar and lunar, incarnating into the cup, and into the priest, and into the initiates. And terrestrial energies, telluric energies, ascending, rising up, meeting in a confluence at one level within the priest, at one level within the cup, at one level within the initiate. I am the last one, friends, to attribute any significance whatsoever to paranormal goings-on. If the paranormal happens, forget it. It doesn't matter anything at all. To get hung up on bits of paranormal is exceedingly trivial. It's visible everywhere. What I call traffic lights. If you stop at the traffic lights, you're daft. They're just signals on the way, nothing more than that. But maybe there is a level, maybe there is a point at which there is a fulfillment of certain of these elements. It is a fact that physical objects, under the law of gravity, can take off and float in the air. It is a fact, well attested. It is a fact that if you are touched by a master, if you are touched by a Ramakrishna, you're never quite the same again. If they even look at you, you're never quite the same again, for good or ill. Therefore, they tend to keep themselves a bit quiet, because only some people can respond happily, without dire disturbance, to the very potent aura of a great adept. Now, this aura of the adept would leave its impression on the vessel of the Eucharist. It would leave its impression on the fluid of the Eucharist. And what the initiate consumed may have been fairly potent in terms of a booze-up, but that's not what did the job. That's for sure. I never met a druggie, I've met a few, usually quite voluble about their experiences, who had anything to say of any consequence whatsoever. Now, what do I mean by that? They might recount something, but you look at them, there's nothing there. As like as not, you're looking at a weak, fallible, maladjusted, probably miserable chap who doesn't know what he's doing, if he's not positively balmy. There's more in it than munching a plant or drinking a potion. And that something more can act through the agency of the Eucharistic ritual. And there is the early Christian teaching that with the true priest, the consecration of the host and the wine literally becomes the body and the blood of the Saviour. And what's that telling us? As we'll see particularly when we look at the next hymn, that when the Soma is sacrificed, when the Soma dies, the drop of Soma enters the initiate, the drop of Soma enters the earth and produces amazingly regenerative effects. But it all depends on the conjunction of circumstances, primarily the conjunction of who is there. What I'm saying is, when a Ramakrishna and a Vivekananda meet, whoopee, whoopee. When a Ramana Maharishi and a Yogi Ramaya meet, there is a potent situation indeed. Where the encounter of the master and the chela is linked with the specific objective of incarnating spirit into matter, that has a definite and direct intention regarding every level of life, including the transformation of the physical. That's what Tantra is all about. These are tantric documents. The human entity as the vessel for the incarnating light, for the transformation of the limitations of physical matter and of the earth itself, so that the human being becomes a seed. The human consciousness, the human ego, becomes a seed injected into the earth. And when the ego dies, Shakti, the liberating current, is released to regenerate the planet. Without the initiates scattered around the globe over the centuries, maybe the planet would have died. Without the avatars coming, maybe the planet would have died. It is claimed that Ramakrishna awakened the national Kundalini of India. I think one could go further than that. From that time of Ramakrishna, a tremendous impetus for change in human affairs occurred, the world over. The earth is awash with tremendous powers. The earth is being challenged by incarnating spirit. The trapped toxic energies of the dead past are rising to the surface. Increasingly, there is a healing crisis, or certainly a crisis, individually and collectively, on every level, physically, mentally, spiritually. The entire world is awash with confusion, is striving for release from the containment of the toxic past. Around the world, there are some in whom the light is born, and they become inevitably a catalyst that brings together the seekers of the light, that brings together heaven and earth itself, which challenges the limitations of our inheritance and stimulates a resurgence. I come to spread fire over the earth. I come not to bring peace but a sword. The presence of a great one, contrary to our sentimentalist preferences, is always explosive. If the great one dares to venture among the norms of humankind, very, very hard to take. Something the education system doesn't yet understand, something the medical profession doesn't yet understand, something the psychiatrists don't yet understand, and definitely something the sociologists don't yet understand. The experts are not equipped to comprehend and therefore not equipped to deal with the dis-ease of our age. Only the knower of the light can become the catalyst that awakens the light. The true priesthood is the function of every human being, potentially, but such a one must be resurrected. Such a one must know the Soma. Inevitably, such a one must have stood in the presence of the light and allowed the light to happen. If you'll excuse me, friends, the old man's got a bit of flu.